I'm Irfan. I'm going to discuss about a basic integration of appsync, which is a GraphQL like a middleware, fully managed service by AWS. It has many benefits, like we can integrate with data resolvers like AWS Lambda, DynamoDB, also RDS, and as it's a managed service, like a serverless service, um, authentication like API key cognito and all of this can be managed by AWS. This is like a very basic diagram. Basically, clients can query via HTTPS and they can do the mutation um, in the GraphQL through deployed endpoints of appsync, and appsync ensures that the GraphQL schema is well maintained and the validation, data validation, and everything is done. And then it sends the request after parsing the context to the handler. In our case, we use AWS Lambda as a data resolver or data store as well. And then Lambda stores basically the data into the DynamoDB. And we use proper IAM roles like policy attachment for accessing an invocation from like appsync to Lambda, and then Lambda to DynamoDB. And S3 bucket is used because when we deploy like push the Lambda code, the snapshot to like cloud, it's the zip file is pushed into the like the S3 bucket, and also the GraphQL schema is pushed into the S3 bucket as well. So this is basically a very basic boilerplate implementation. So we are going to demonstrate the deployment of a very simple task management system where we can create, update, delete, and list the tasks, where in the GraphQL schema we ensure certain things like let's review a bit. Here it is. So we can see that the task, the ID has to be a mandatory variable, and then title is also a mandatory thing, and description can be optional. And then due date is AWS dead time, it is also optional. Status has to be to do, in progress, or completed. And we will see when we'll deep dive into the example. And also I have defined like a different type for response. And then the pagination, we also see like how we can pass the token to the DynamoDB and do the pagination if there are like so many. We can batch process and then retrieve in batch from the DynamoDB to list the tasks. And yeah, so these inputs are used for the mutation and query. We already see that the query is here. This is the query resolver. And the full infrastructure is split into two different CloudFormation stacks. Let me quickly overview. So the base stack is basically the resources like DynamoDB, Lambda, and appsync. We can see this is just for the proof of concept. The building mode is like paper request, and we haven't handled like the sharding and stuff, or do we really need to? And like the optimize of the read and write consistency. And then, so when we deploy the production, this can be split into much more like a different stack, and then we ensure that the proper parameters are there. For example, I have used 30 seconds of timeout here in Lambda. So this is the IAM execution role. And I have provided the role name as lambda STS. So when we do something like custom role name, when we deploy the CloudFormation stack, we need to pass the capability IAM parameter. So this is the service that's going to be attached on the policy name. Yeah, the log group I have also allowed because we need to see the logs. And then DynamoDB, like the put, get, and update, delete item actions are there. Yeah, we should define proper resource, but for like, testing allowed all the resources deployed here. Like we only have lambda, dynamodb, and appsync deployed, an S3 bucket. And this is the Python. I am naming like a Python lambda function because the code that's going to be pushed here, the S3 key, this is basically a Python handler. I'll go through quickly, and the runtime is Python 3.11. And also the environment variable are passed here. Like this is Docker internal, but it should be loaded from like a variable because of we are going to test in local stack. That's why this is Docker's internal endpoint. And then the appsync schema. Yeah, the data source, lambda data source, is depending on because the appsync. So this explicit dependency is basically not needed. Why? Because in the property I have used like the get attribute, so it ensures that the appsync API is already created, and then this part of the stack will be deployed. And then the outputs, why I have this is the cloudformation stack exports. We can see the lambda ARN, also like appsync API ID, and the endpoints it's needed because to hit the endpoints and everything. This lambda resource ARN and API ID can be passed by SSM parameters instead of exporting, but like for local stacks it's good. Even though it's local stack, we cannot access if we don't have proper local stack IAM key or authentication. So appsync is basically also supported in like a free tier of local stack pro. Okay, so let's deep dive into the other infra. This is basically the resolver stack, which ensures that the request template and the response template. So I have done very simple like JSON, converting the JSON to the whole context and doing the parsing in the lambda for our better understanding. But here we can like split the template into different parts like the field name, input, and not pass the full context to the handler, so that if we split the parsing or do the parsing here, then in the handler it's much simpler. But for our better understanding, I have passed full context to the handler and then do the parsing. So this is like the create task resolver update. This matches with the schema we have. So we can see field name, and this is also not needed because appsync implicitly handles which field name it should be passed. But for our understanding, I've explicitly defined the field name here. And then, so yeah, list. Okay, now let's quickly deep dive into the Python function. So this is the basically the handler. Yeah, proper environment variable should be loaded here, and then this is the dynamodb. We are using the Boto3 client library, passing the environment variable to get the connection of the dynamodb, and then ensure that the task status is ensured, and use data class to do the validation, even though the validation is done in the data resolver by appsync. But still, if we do any kind of parsing, I ensure that which is mandatory field, and then which are like optional. So and this is the dynamically when you do the update. This creates the update statement, like which key are provided by the input and which are not. So only that keys are updated, the attributes are updated in the material table. We are parsing the payload here, though the data resolver can parse the payload and only pass the field name or fields into the handler context. So let's jump into the handler. This is the handler. Yeah, I have done some logging and printing. Logging should do, but print is into the container. So I have done the force flush to see the logs in the Docker container. And also we can see in the CloudWatch log, or because we have provided the IAM role permission to that one. So what it basically does is that it parse the context and then pass the field to a processor factory. So we have a processor factory, which is actually basically factory pattern, and it's scalable code so that we can implement our event processor or like handler here. We can see that depending on the field name, we are providing the different types of processor like create, update, delete, and list processor. If I go to one of them, like this is the base, like the abstract class kind of protocol is a structural programming, which ensures dynamic implementation like interface aggregation. Okay, right. So let's see for the basic one. This is the task processor. It does create the data class task object and then gets the connection of the DynamoDB and then gets the table name. And so get table is basically returning the table of the DynamoDB using the connection that I showed, which is a global variable, which is a cold start. It will be loaded. Anyways, now, so basically it does everything, and also for list processor, we are doing the pagination. So if we provide the limit and the token, we have exclusive start key and last evaluate key in DynamoDB, which ensures like helps us to get the number of data, limited batch data we need. All right, so let's jump into deploying the stack locally. First of all, I have set all my config and like the API key authentication token in my environment variable so that we can access. But I'm going to start the local stack start. So starting, yep, started. Now first, we need to create the S3 bucket so that we can push the GraphQL schema. It can be done in a CloudFormation stack as well, but I have created it because we only need a S3 for the code and the GraphQL schema, that's why. So I'm creating the bucket. You can also see the logs here. So yep, create bucket done. I'm pushing the GraphQL schema to the bucket. It's also there done. And then let me yep. So okay, so the zip file is not here. We need to do the zip and then push. So I have created the zip, but I am on a different folder. That's why let me go there. And then so now, yep, the zip file is uploaded. We can see, yep, the logs also here. And then also if I go to the, yep, we can see that the files are there in the local stack S3 bucket. All right, good. And then, so now it's basically ready to deploy the stacks. Even though I have a bash script which will deploy the parent and child stack, but let's do this in the AWS CLI. Yep. So endpoint base stack is the one. So now it started. Let's see the logs. So now it's deploying the DynamoDB IAM roles, attaching the role with the lambda, appsync, and exporting the app ID and the lambda ARN so that the next time we do deploy the resolver stack, it gets all the API ID and the lambda ARN for properly deploying the appsync resolver. Well, it's done, and then Let's deploy the resolver stack. Now the resolver stack is going to be deployed. So yeah, and please ensure that your environment variables are there, like the AWS config, and your AWS CLI is also installed. It should be done in a few seconds. And we can see the logs also here, and then it's done. And now let's get the app ID. So basically appsync. So if I get the GraphQL API, so this is here we can get the app ID. You can see this is the app ID we have. Why I need the app ID? Because I'm going to set my Postman here to test it. So let's set the app ID first. Yep. But I haven't set the API key, so let's just test. Yeah, unauthorized exception. So let's get the app ID, API key. Appsync list API keys for the app ID. Now we can see the expiry time, and also this is I'm using this app ID API key. Yeah. So now let's set the API key. Yeah, the current value should be good, but I'm just setting the initial value as well. And now, so if I try getting a task, the task is not there. So yeah, task not found. So let's create a task. Let's create the first task, first sample task, which is to do. Oh, let's try something. Yeah, in like A is not a valid status, so yeah, do done. Then second sample task is in progress, done, and then third one is completed, done. So let's list them. Let's do a thing. So let's limit it to 2 because we have created 3 and we are passing the next token to the dynamodb. Let's see if we get a token. Yeah, we see that it's limited to 2, and we have provided like this one to get the next batch. So if I do set this here, it will pass the 3. So this is the third task, right? So let's go back and set the limit to 10, but we have 3, so we will get now. You can see that all the tasks are here. Let's do some mutation. Let's do this. So this is to do. Let's move it to in progress. So if I try to get a task now, I should be able to get the task. Yep, I got it. And then update the task. Update the task. This is like in progress. Yep, it was to do, and then it will be in progress. So now if I try to get the task, it's to do, but if I get it, it should be in progress. It's updated. And also we can see in the list as well. So to do, if I get the list, yeah, in progress. So make it like it can be made done. So this is redundant. So let's delete this one. It's completed. So if we do delete the task, this one, let's try deleting. Yeah, it's done. But if we try to delete it again, task ID not found, proper message, error message. So let's list out the task. Now we can see only 2. So Yep, this is like a basic boilerplate in CloudFormation deployment of appsync, lambda, and dynamodb. Yeah, please feel free to go through the steps and reach out to me if you want to discuss further. Thank you so much for your time.